Well, thank you. I feel it a great privilege to be able to speak before you this day. You folks here, I feel, are the real conservative movement in the state of Utah. And with that responsibility, with the philosophies that you base your positions on, there are underlying themes that you believe are based on truth. And in science, we try to uncover or discover truth. Now, if there is truth that's out there, your religious philosophies should coincide with the scientific understandings. Isn't that right? Okay. Well, I'm here to tell you today that they do. But there's a whole lot of people out there who are telling you they don't. Let's get into this just a little bit. The topic is dogmatism and Darwinian evolution in the schools. Now, what is dogmatism? It's the arrogant assertion of opinions as truth. And that's exactly what's happening in our schools today. Arrogant assertions. We're finding less and less is based in these controversial topics. Less and less is based on actual fact and more on a philosophy. Darwinian evolution, now let me tell you, we do see and observe change over time. If that's your definition of evolution, I'm an evolutionist, okay? But we do not see a common ancestry of all life. Now, there's a lot of things that certain scientists will point to and say, that shows a common ancestry of all life. You know what? There's different ways you can look at that same evidence and come to a totally different conclusion. But they won't allow that other conclusion. Why? Because it speaks of powers that are not explainable by the laws of materialism, by physics and chemistry and so forth. And furthermore, in evolution, it's that the complex systems arise strictly from matter and time over time through unguided random processes. Now, the state of Utah right now is working on updating their science standards. Now, the science standards that we have some problems in several ways. They do need a little bit of update to what's there, and there is already a bias against the thought that there may be somewhere a creator out there. And so these new standards were being proposed, and it was all kind of in the writing committee. It was kind of hush-hush. But because of the Common Core problems that were arose, because Oak Norton and other good people brought these things to light, because of that, the state legislature put together a law that says we're going to have some more public input. We're going to have some parent review. And they put together a law that says we're going to have these little review panels to review things. And I, fortunately, was one of those people that was selected to be on the science review panel. Now, it's very interesting, though this was proposed to get input from parents and so forth, it kind of was implemented in a much different fashion. And this next, in this committee that we were on, there were 7 people that were selected by the State Office of Education, and 5 from the Senate and 5 from the House. Sounds kind of interesting. I was selected by the Senate. But when it came down to it, and I don't have the time to discuss it all in detail. I'd love to tell you more, maybe at another time. But when it came down to it, there was a report that was prepared for the State Office of Education. And that report, I missed something here. I got to double click. Anyway, I'll just have to tell you. That report was really built by 8 people that were based in the administration, and only 4 people who you would consider parents and not related, not tied to the school administration. Most of these people that were on this committee were university professors. We had science teachers. We had district science specialists. And now there were a few more initially, but only 4 people were parents making this report. And of those 4, 2 of them were heavily related to or in the camp of the administration, if you will. And it was myself and Elisa Ellis that were really saying anything to the contrary or bringing anything really critical up. So when we discovered, when we got into this review, we realized that indeed, as there were some rumblings, these were the next generation science standards. This is essentially Common Core science. This is the things that we kind of feared would happen. And I can't, don't have the time to go into detail, but there are a lot of problems with this, with these next generation science standards. And I also might mention that like I said, there was kind of some hush-hush in the beginning. These things have been officially posted on the State Office of Education website, along with the review that was returned, which is really the administration review, as I mentioned. But that review was turned in and posted on the State Office of Education website, and so I feel I have the opportunity to share that with you now today. Now, in this proposed standards, they talk about radical environmental issues. What I mean by that is that carbon dioxide and caused from you folks, we people, is the reason that our Earth has a temperature. Also on the thing was dogmatic teaching of evolution. It's not a question of looking at the facts. It is the fact, you know. And there are some other problems, and one of the most concerning is that if we adopt these standards, it will really send us onto a path. It'll really lock us into national standards. And we'll lose our opportunity to guide some of that. Oh, this was the slide I was thinking of. Yeah, I talked about that. Okay, so in some of this discussion that we had between some of the professors and so forth that were on this committee, one of the professors, after I showed some concern for some of the content that was there, he said, evolution theory is just as solidly supported by data as gravitational theory or the theory of relativity. We can't allow pseudoscience to enter into our Utah science classrooms at any level. Now, is that true? No, I don't believe that's true. In fact, I can show you, and I will show you in just a few minutes here, that that's demonstrably not true. It's not. It is absolutely not, but that's what's happening in our schools. That's what they're teaching your kids. And so you wonder why they don't have an understanding that there is a God, that he holds us responsible, and that he is involved in our lives. It's because they've been taught not to think that way. So, when we teach archaeology, are we teaching people to look for the signs of wind and erosion? Or are we teaching people to look for the signs of human activity, the aspects of mind, of consciousness? In archaeology, we don't look for wind and erosion, we look for signs of intelligence, signs for a creator. Yet that is specifically avoided when we consider other aspects of science, when we consider biology or astronomy or so forth. These things are totally ruled out, and they say, and then when they come up with explanations, they say, oh, so see, it shows that there is no God. Now, we could look at the ground here, and we could see just a bunch of pebbles, or what else could we see there? Yeah, do we see some signs of intelligence there? Well, absolutely, we see signs of intelligence. We see an arrowhead. If we saw something like this laying on the ground, what would you conclude? Intelligence, the hand of a creator here, right? Now, if we saw a bunch of these put together and they did something, they even had a little motor turning them or something like that, we'd say, wow, there's a creator involved here, right? Now, it doesn't matter if these gears, for example, are extremely big like this one or extremely small like this one. What would you say? There's a creator here, right? Look, 20 micrometers is the scale there. And look at these little tiny gears. Now, is this some little tiny, tiny miniature watch that's been created by us? Where do you think we might find gears that tiny? We find it on the back legs of this little hopping insect. This little insect, a mere 2 to 3 millimeters long, can hop like mad. And how can he hop like mad? It's because he has gears on his back legs. Right there. There's his back legs. They're intermeshed with these little gears. And why does that little insect have gears on the back of his legs? Well, the reason why is because he's so small and he can hop so amazingly that his back legs need to be coordinated, and neural circuits like in a grasshopper to keep the legs equalized so the grasshoppers jump straight would be too slow. And so this little critter has to have gears meshing his back legs so he can jump straight and true. Without them, he'd flip off to the side or just flop over or whatever. But this little critter can jump with as much as 400, I even saw one paper said 700 G's of force. Absolutely amazing. Do we see evidence of a hand of a creator? I do. I do. So what are some of the signs? When we saw that arrowhead, we saw low probability of natural causes. We saw specified complexity. Here we see the same thing in this little critter. Now, is this the only thing that we see in nature? Well, you talk to a lot of people, they won't even recognize that as a hand of a creator. And okay, it's one of those self-evident things that Thomas Jefferson talked about. What are some other things that show really design in nature? Well, inside the cell, there are like these little protein building blocks, and they come together like Legos, if you will. But they're even more advanced than Legos because they don't have just a complementary symmetry so that they can fit together, but they have a complementary chemistry so they pull together, kind of like magnets in your Legos. And so these two little things right here, they would do something like this. They would come together and then it'd just drop in. Now, wouldn't that be cool if you could go down to the hardware store and buy a bunch of bricks and put them in your backyard and they would just kind of, shake them a little bit and there's a house. Whoa! How did that happen? Oh, it was all chance. We sell chance possibilities here. No, there's a designer, there's a creator there. This is a statement that was found in my kid's textbook here. It says, the theory of evolution has also greatly influenced our way of thinking about ourselves. One reason is, of course, that it contradicts the literal interpretation of the Bible. Another difficulty is that it seems to contradict the literal, wait just a second, put my glasses back on. Another difficulty that seems to diminish human significance. The new biology asks us to accept the proposition that we are not fundamentally different from other organisms, either in our origins or in our place in the natural world. Now, is that a statement of science or is that a statement of belief? You see, they are already teaching belief in our science classrooms. Now, some of them aren't as blatant as that, but in these next generation science standards, the state of Utah added a little fluff, so it's Utah standards, right? Okay. And this little something that they added is the root question, how does matter and energy interact to form our world? Oh, that seems like a benign enough statement, doesn't it? Until you realize that matter and energy cannot. We know by science that they cannot create our world. There are fundamental laws that would be violated. And you know what? These university professors on this committee were totally ignorant. PhD level professors are totally ignorant of some of these challenges to materialistic theory. I was dumbfounded. Someday we ought to talk about that. It's a fascinating topic. Well, how does that really affect our life here? Francis Collin, he is the head of the National Institutes of Health. He is a very renowned scientist. He is also started an organization called BioLogos, in which the stated objective of this BioLogos is so that to show the harmony between science and religion. Well, the way he sees the harmony is when there's a conflict, guess what gets modified? And this is already being taught in our schools, really. That is that Adam and Eve were living many thousands of years, and mitochondrial Eve lived at about 190,000 years ago. Mitochondria, or Y chromosome atom, lived about 160,000 years ago. In other words, they really didn't exist as two individuals from which all the human race came from. And that there really was not two individuals. There just was a population no less than 10,000 at any time. So in essence, Adam and Eve were a fiction. And there never was a fall of man. And if you don't have a fall of man, how does that start to affect some of your foundational philosophies of life? You don't need a savior, do you? Well, Francis Collins was given $3.6 million here just recently to carry this message out to the world, including into churches. Including into churches. And undoubtedly, it will be even more powerfully injected into our schools as well. You know, if you can't recognize the self-evidence of a creator, and Thomas Jefferson, when he talked about this, he says, I don't have to appeal to revelation. He says, it is just apparent by what we see around us. And what did I show you today? Isn't it the self-evidence? And we can further go beyond that, way beyond that, and show the measurability that it is not a possibility, that natural causes are an explanation for why we're here. Now, am I saying we're just going to turn schools into churches? No, we're not going to do that. Although if you're teaching homeschooling or something to your kids, why aren't you taking advantage? Or maybe you are, I don't know, but take advantage of this great knowledge that's coming forth that further reinforces the hand of a creator in our lives. But in the public schools, all we're asking for is let's let teachers teach the facts of science, even if they contradict the standard theories of the day. So what should we do? Well, educate yourself on the issues. I applaud you being here today. I want all of you to take out a business card or write on a piece of paper your name and contact information. I would love to get with you and help you help the state of Utah to let teachers know that these things can be at least sounded in our classrooms. Be active in opposing the next generation science standards. We have a bill coming up in this legislature that will do these things that I talked about. Question Darwin Day. We'll talk about that sometime. Please give me your contact information so we can have Question Darwin Day instead of Darwin Recognition Day. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Bye.